Welcome to Use Case 2, Digital Business Transformation. This use case is based around a smart city, and what we're looking to do is to provide IoT-enabled devices in the smart city that will provide information on waste, lighting, and renewable energy. What this demo will show is how we can expose that data as a service, allowing the data access to both citizens and partners. This will allow partners and the government to be able to pursue entirely new business models by leveraging the ability to be able to have real-time information to understand when bins need to be emptied. So during this demo, what we'll explain is how we IoT enable the smart city, how we provide real-time information about how full the bins are, to be able to automatically kick off business process, but exposing this data as an API, a controlled gateway with monetization, monitoring, as well as the ability for citizen developers to build applications quickly and easily. So what we see here is the Cumulocity platform, which is effectively the IoT capability of the digital business platform. You can see down the left-hand side, this is a custom application that's built specifically for the smart city. You can see the city overview, you can see the city lighting, energy consumption, parking, and waste management. For the purpose of this demo, we're going to focus on waste management. So as you can see, this is a dashboard that's been pulled together to show various information at a high level around the city parking, the city lighting, as well as the waste management capabilities, as well as energy consumption. So if we focus on the waste management, we can now see the location of the individual bins. We can see some recent alarms that certain bins are full. We have some quick links in there that will take us to some information. But this is typically a IoT manager's view of the world, so that he can actually manage the devices in the field. He can understand exactly how things are working, why the alarms are kicking off, what the locations of the bins are, including the amount of waste that we need to collect. As we drill down into an individual bin, you can see the alert that's been kicked off, and effectively the bin is at 91% filled, which is kicking off the alarm that you see on the bottom left-hand side. As the bin gets full based on the sensors in real time, it will actually show you the information as well as the total last 30 days in terms of how many streets were covered, how many waste bin containers we have out there, how much waste we've collected. So as we go back into this area, we can close that down. We can see that the bin is dropped down. We're using a simulator at the moment for this purpose of this exercise. So let's see how we can modify this dashboard. How easy is it to change it? Everything is very much widget based. So we have a whole bunch of out-of-the-box widgets that we can leverage. So effectively we can say add a data point graph. We can see information. We can give it a name that's a little bit more meaningful. So in this case, it's my custom widget. We can come down into more detail. We can see various data points, so we can add new data points. If this is the case, it will automatically show me what data points are available against this device, and we can see various information. So we'll pick this particular device, and we'll see the data points associated with it, and we can see the fill level percentage. So we'll select that, and we'll add that to the chart. There's no point in having the energy, so we'll take that one off, and we'll add that. We can see the various information, and then we can make a choice of how we want that to look, whether we want it to be customized, dark, or branded. Equally, we can determine the header style, so we might want a border on there. And effectively, what we can now do is we can save that. That will automatically change the dashboard, as you can see. We can then drag and drop it around. We can move it up, left and right. Doesn't need developers to do this. We can literally do this as an administrator. So effectively, we can move that around and make the changes that we need to that dashboard quite easily, quite effectively, provided I have permissions to do so. Let's drill down into the detail of the waste bin and let's create an alarm. So this is how we can create what we call a smart rule. So effectively, what we can do now is we can add a number of different smart rules. So a smart rule may be to send an email. It may be to do a geofence alarm, so if it moves location. We may want to just have a threshold, measurement threshold. So we can select one of these alarms. Here's one we've created earlier. So let's edit this particular one. We can see one we've already created. This is an alarm where the fill level is above 90%. You can see it's measured on the fill level, a percentage of 90%. So we can actually fill in details in terms of the description, what its threshold is. Equally, we can create the alarm. So we can say if alarm is full, we'll create off an alert, which is this waste bin full, and there's the description. And we can save those changes. So effectively, if the bin gets above 90%, alarm will get created and it's active. So we can decide whether it's enabled or disabled at this stage. So let's drill down into the waste management. As you can see, one of these alarms will kick off and you can see whether an alarm is actually fired. What we're focusing on is this particular application called Smart City. While we're waiting, let's have a quick look at the administration functions of the platform. What we can see here is the administration side dashboard, which is the default dashboard. So we get a welcome page, which again you have the option to use or not use. Again, effectively everything's grouped is grouped according to the device type. We can drill down into the waste bins. We can see the various waste bins that we currently have, what the configuration, what is the type. One of the things that's really important is that the ID here is automatically generated by the platform. So there are times where we might need to look at more detail. So equally, we might want to look at the device management side of it. And in the device management side, we see a lot more information in here. If you notice that all of the devices, again, the groups are listed. We can register devices in here. We can see the locations of the devices in terms of where they're currently located. If we look at all devices, what effectively it will is give us a list of all of the current devices that we have registered with the platform. We can drill down into the detail of one of these. And what we see in here is it tells me the current status of the device, any measurements we've currently got. So again, this one's a simulated device, but equally if it was a real device, then effectively would show various information, including the ID. The ID, as I mentioned earlier, is automatically generated. We also have location details based on the geolocation of the device. And one of the things that's really important as well is as we look at the device itself, we'll see information around measurements, alarms, controls, events, tracking, as well as the identity of this particular device. So what we'll do is we'll drill down into the identity. This gives us an opportunity to give us an external ID, which means as we get different devices registering with an automatic generation number, it gives us an opportunity to be able to register an external ID that all other applications will leverage. And we can see there, in this case, we've actually assigned an external ID. Okay, so let's have a look at the other side around the Clean & Green Services portal. This is a portal that has all the various information. We're particularly focused on the waste and cycling, so we'll drill into the details. And typically, we can provide a portal that will allow them to complete in the details to have their waste bin collected. So you can complete this through a particular standard HTML5 form. We can submit that, and then the process will fire. Now, what we're seeing in here is an Agile Apps environment that is designed for citizen developers to develop their own environment. It's very straightforward. It's very simple. You can literally see some basic information that we've completed on that form, various tabs across the top that can have various pieces of information. We also have a process on the right-hand side, which is the household waste disposal process, which one of those higher up is around particular, we need to complete the waste disposal, which is a task designed for a waste disposal person to clear the bin. So we've got various information displayed up here. What else can we do with inside of this environment from a citizen developer perspective? What we may choose to do is complete this process. We can go in there, we'll have to go to the back office. We can go in here, complete some details that the waste has been collected. We have to fill in a little bit of a description to say what we've actually done. Again, this will be available on the mobile, which we'll touch on a little while in a moment. But again, we can actually complete that process. You can see on the right-hand side that that process step is now being completed. The overall process has been completed, and we had an email to confirm that, to say that this particular process has been collected at this particular street, which we completed in the form. What else can we do with inside of this environment? We may return to the list, and you can see on the right-hand side, there's a set of views of all of the particular records we want to see. We only have one, but you can see created today, created in the last 7 days, household waste disposal requests, etc. We may want to create a new view that is specific to me or want to make available to everybody. It's very simple to do. Again, from a citizen developer point of view, we can just remove, we can drag and drop whatever we need over to these environments, select the particular fields that we need. And once those are selected, we can move on to next. We can actually put in the order. So we want to modify it. So we want to order it by a specific request name. And then we can go on there and we can also put in some details about filtering. So we may choose to filter this based on its status that is equal to waste collected. And we can save that. So once it's saved, we have to give it a name. We can decide what permissions we want to give it. So effectively, we can let everybody see it, specific users see it, and we just need to give it a name and save it, and then it will appear in a moment on the right-hand side. So we can now see that the new filter is available. So we can see information, and again, all users in this case will be able to see that. So what else can we do? If we can see this waste type, for instance, is on a particular form, let's see how easy it is to change this form. So what we might want to do is to move that particular field onto a new tab, for instance. So we can go in here, we can drill down into the administrator, into the forms for that particular object. We can see the default layout. And in here, we can see various information. We may want to add a new section, drag and drop. We give it a name. Save that. And then effectively, then we just drag and drop that field onto the other one and save the changes. What we can then see if we go back to our form, that again, very simply changed. We've got a new tab. The waste disposal information is moved. The waste details is now available in terms of the household. And we can actually see those changes quite easily. So again, relatively straightforward process. Okay, now let's have a look at Integration Cloud. Currently, we have the Cumulocity IoT platform that's responsible for the information with regards to the connectivity to the devices. We also had the Agile Apps, which is the process side of things. And what I want to do is how do I deal with the integration between these two environments? Equally, the Agile App process can run on-premise, which we'll touch on a little bit as well, about how do we deal with cloud and on-premise in a very secure and quick and easy way. So let's first of all focus a little bit on the connectivity to the Cumulocity platform. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at the connectivity options inside of Integration Cloud. So what we see in here is we have a bunch of applications that are out of the box, ranging from Amazon, Alphabet, which is again one of our products, Cumulocity, through to Google, as well as Microsoft Dynamics, CRM, OData, lots of different connectors. If we want to create a new application that is a specific one we do not have, it's quite relatively straightforward, and we can create a new application. The one that we need to focus on primarily is the Cumulocity platform, which is our IoT capability inside of the digital business platform. So by selecting this, you can then see various information. And what we want to be able to do is you can see we've already got one created already. If we wanted to create a new account, we could very easily. But we'll edit the one we've got. As you can see, we have details about the URL, the authentication. We have details about how we deal with the connectivity to this particular environment. Equally, from an operations, these are the 4 operations that we're currently using for the API for this particular platform. There are many more, and equally, if we wanted to add a new operation, that could be something that we could easily do. So let's show you what's involved with regards to adding a new operation, or we could just edit the existing one. So let's edit the existing one, and effectively we can see details here in terms of the operation ID. We can see the connectivity. We can see various functions, which again are the API functions. In this case, we're using inventory, but it could be events, it could be measurements, it could be auditing. And equally, then we see all of the different appropriate APIs that are available for that particular IoT capability. In this case, we're using get manage object, which is effectively get the device details. So we can go next. What we can then see is that this is a particular managed object that we're looking for from a business objects perspective. We can then go next, and then we get a list of all of the variables that we can use for data fields. In this case, we're only really interested in selecting it by ID, so we can specify the ID. And then what we can then do is we can confirm that operation, and we can finish that. What that does is it gives us an operation and an API that effectively gives us the details associated with that. We can test that. Effectively, we can just go on there, specify what the credentials are, how we're going to log in. We can specify the ID, which is the Cumulocity ID, and effectively we can fill that in and we can hit run. What that will do now, as you can see, as a result of that, for that particular information, it's brought back all of the details associated with that device, the percentage bin filled, as well as the longitude and latitude, as well as various information around the owner, etc., etc. So that's as simple as it is required to integrate into the IoT platform. Okay, so now let's have a look at how we deal with exposing on-premise. This is an integration server, which is actually an on-premise server. And what we can do in here is we can actually look at actually defining certain services within inside of this platform, including the cloud applications for connectivity, that where we can take a particular service that we have running on-premise and expose it as a particular service within inside of the cloud environment. So you can see there's a bunch of APIs here. And effectively what we want to do is we want to upload that service up into the cloud. So what if we look for the waste disposal services, we can then see that this particular service is already there with a get and a post. Again, the post is an asynchronous post to ensure that the firewall security can do this without having to set up firewall capabilities. Again, the support for the communication is fully reverse invoke between the on-premise and the cloud. So what we need to think about here is if we want to expose this on-premise service into the cloud, we already have that service available on the internal. Effectively, we can then come in here and say what we also want to look at is the Cumulocity. So we want to bridge how Cumulocity can send information, or we can pull information from Cumulocity and send it to the on-premise service quite seamlessly. So what we do here is we can, again, look at these different operations. So we'll first of all build out an integration between these particular environments. So again, we can do synchronizing between two applications, but this one gives us greater flexibility if we orchestrate two or more applications. So in this case, we're orchestrating between Cumulocity and the on-premise service. So what we can do in here is we can edit that, and you can see this is very much citizen developer type view, drag and drop. This is creating a service request for devices. So again, what we can do in here is very quickly be able to see how that will pull all the information from Cumulocity. We'll get devices by external ID. We can then get the details by ID, and we can then get the alarms that have been raised against the waste bins. What we then want to do is for each of the alarms that have been created, what we want to do is loop over those with using the for each where the waste bin is full. And effectively what we want to do then is to post that waste disposal services as a post. Okay. So again, we can look at the Cumulocity. We can drag that over. We can actually pull information from Cumulocity. We can say we want to, in this case, we want to update the alarm because of the fact that we've now processed it. A business process has been created. So effectively, we can then see the various pipeline in terms of the fields that we can then map and drag and drop. So we can say, yes, we want to update the Cumulocity ID based on the ID that we've gathered. And equally, we want to do the status, and we can set that value in this case is to be cleared. So effectively, as soon as the business process has been created within inside of the Agile apps, then effectively we want to update the process to say that the Cumulocity alert is now cleared as it's being actioned. All right, so again, it introspects the environments. You'll be able to see all of the fields associated with that, and effectively then we can save that. Again, so we now have that new service available for execution. So the next area is where we might want to look to change or add a new process. How easy it is to add a new process into the Agile Apps platform. So let's take the step where we want to add a new process around industrial waste. rather than just household waste. So what we need to do is, first of all, we need to go onto the administration. We need to think about what access do we want to give to this new process. So we can add a new team. Right now, we'll create a new team for the industrial waste disposal team. We can put it into a parent team of my team in this instance, and we can save that in. We can see the various details. We can then drill down into the details and we can add a user. And in this case, we'll add a user for this one called demo, and we'll save that effectively. What we can then do is we can go into the object and we can go to the waste disposal request. And what we can do now is we can actually go to the processes and we can see the household one there, but let's add a new one. This is one for the industrial waste process. So we'll load the editor. We'll add a start event. We'll add an end event. We need to add a task, a user task. And that task in this instance will be something relatively simple like complete the emptying of the bins of such nature. Okay. We can specify its due date. We can specify which role we want this to apply to. And in this case, we want it to the industrial team. So we'll actually assign it to the industrial team, and we can actually specify a specific form that we want them to use. We can wire it up quite simply from step to step. Again, designed for citizen developers. We can save that, give it a name. And effectively, we've created a new process. So what we can then do is we can go to the actual waste type. And in this case, you can see that it's a particular drop-down. So we're going to add into that drop-down industrial. So it's a managed enumerated values. And then what we can then do is we can actually now, that drop-down will have that additional field. We'll create a business rule for when a new process is created for this particular environment. And again, we need to give it a name. And what we can then do is we can complete when a specific condition is met, where a particular waste type is equal to industrial, we can say that we want to start the process, which is the new process that we've just started. And again, that's now saved and enabled. And effectively, that means that when a new particular entry is created, if it happens to be industrial, then effectively what would happen is it will start the process. What we can then do is we can go back to our form and we can go and see the various and create a new one and just see what happens. We can change that to industrial. As you can see, that's all working. The form is already showing the new drop down, and effectively we've now created a new process as well as the ability to be able to say that there's a new industrial capability there. So the next stage is to go back to the Cumulocity platform, and as we can see here, we go back onto the actual administration function, and what we can then do is we can see some various information around these waste bins. As you can see, we have a number of waste bins, and we can, if we look at the details from the point of view of this particular waste bin, we can see information that this one is household, and the second simulator is actually industrial. So we have already the device that's an industrial one already prepared, which is a copy of effectively the household. So what that means is that we need to now look at how we deal with the development side. So again, we had this ability to be able to create service requests for devices. We'll edit that again. And effectively where we created the update, what we want to be able to do now is we can see that these posts have been done for a particular where the bin has been done. So effectively, instead of a hard coding, that particular value, which we set originally to household, we'll take it as a variable now that comes from the Agile app. So what we now need to do is we need to wire up that particular manage object for the waste type, and we'll wire that up from a drag and drop capability so that we'll now leverage this new waste capability within inside of that integration. So we've wired that up now, and we can save that. So now the information is being passed depending on how it's collected. So effectively what we're able to do now is to go back onto that particular environment and restart that scheduled service. So what that means is that now when the waste bins get notified that it's particularly full, then now not only will we be getting household waste, but we'll also be getting industrial waste as well. You can now see that the event is cleared, and effectively what that means is that a new business process has been created automatically. So we can see that it's an industrial. We've actually created a new process for the industrial waste disposal, and effectively we have the ability to be able to go into this waste disposal for the industrial waste disposal, and that is a task that needs to be completed by an individual engineer or waste disposal for industrial waste expert. So what we can see now is that we can complete that step, and effectively what we can do is similar to before. We can say that the waste has been collected. We can fill in the description, effectively say that the waste has been collected as before, but this time it's for an industrial waste process, and that will then complete that particular process as we can see there, and effectively it will email a notification to the individual. What we can also see here is what does this look like from a mobile application device point of view. We can see what it would look like, how you can look on a mobile. You can see various information around the process. You can see the address. You can see the details. You can see that it's waste type industrial. You can see information around the waste collected. And you can complete this particular form as you did in the previous screen, but the difference now is that you can do it from a mobile phone, and you can fill in the comments as you would on the previous screen, but it's all fully mobile enabled, essentially from the point of view of where you've built that form in the first place. It's all done for you out of the box. There's no need for you to do anything different. In this final section, I want to talk about how we can secure the APIs that we've exposed both on Cumulocity and the Agile Apps. What I want to talk to you a little bit about is the API gateway. This primarily is focused on being able to expose our APIs in a safe and secure way for the processes that we're exposing. So effectively what we can do here is effectively create an API quite easily based in this instance in the cloud or on premise. So again, we have the opportunity to define which API we want to define. In this case, we're going to put it into a grouping of device management, and we can actually provide a description and create a new device API. So as we complete these things, we need to define the host name and the port number. And effectively, we can then define various information associated with the connectivity and the base path URL, which in this case is REST. So what we can do then is we can actually provide us resource name, resource path, and we can port down the supported method that is required to support this. So again, we'll keep the resource path and the resource name the same. And effectively what we can do then is specify that in this case, it's a get, which is to show how we get device information as exposed through the gateway. We then can add the detail, and we can see the various information associated now with this new exposed API through the gateway, and effectively this is going to give us the ability to be able to define various information with regards to this, in this case that the content type is JSON, and equally we can define the schema type if needs be and add a response, etc. Accordingly. We have multiple ways to say how it will respond, whether it will respond with a 200, whether it will particularly respond. We can switch protocols. We can temporarily respond accordingly with regards to this particular API definition. So okay, we'll save that. So now we have an API which is effectively a device, and we can see the various information, and we can define policies against this device. This gives us the ability to be able to put some policy enforcement around threat protection, some of the transports that are supported, equally any standard logging that we might want to do, including any monitoring of this particular service. And we can define in this case the logging. We want to store the requested payload. And again, the destination is API gateway and API portal in this instance. And we can also store the response payload in the logging. In addition to that, we have now our particular device API. We can enable that. and effectively that will now make it available, and we can publish that into the API portal, and we can make it available to the communities of the developer as well as the endpoints defined. Notice at the moment that is on 5556, and our actual service that we're actually executing is on 5555. So effectively what we've done is virtualize the service endpoints to again protect the endpoints from the outside world, but equally give all of that security nature to give the easy consumption of these APIs for developers. If we now look at the API portal, we can see details on the API portal. If we log in on the API portal, we can actually see information about the APIs that we've now published there and exposed. So as you can see, there is our new API for device. You can see the details of that, and effectively we can also now define a package to monetize this, to make this available from against a plan. So we'll create one in this case. We'll create a plan. We'll call this plan, in this case, Platinum. And as a result, we can then put a cost associated with that. In this case, it's going to be $100. And effectively, if there's any terms and conditions, we can put terms and conditions in, and equally any license implications associated with the usage of this API. What we can also do is put a maximum request quota in. So again, we're defining a plan that says for your $100, you can have a maximum request of 100 calls during a specific interval. In this case, we may turn around and say you can only push 100 calls through, I don't know, every week, okay? Or one for every week, 100 calls per week. And again, if we get to the point where there's a violation of that quota, then we can say you've exceeded your limit. So this is giving us the ability to be able to package this up as a capability and monetize it. Again, this will be useful from the point of view of partners and to some degree citizens in terms of the consumption of these APIs, primarily focused more on the partner side in terms of if you want access to my smart city, then this is how much the package will be associated with this. So what we've done is we're going to create a package, and effectively what we can do is we can say this is against a particular plan of Platinum, which we've just created. And then we can define which APIs we want to associate with that plan. So in this case, it's our new API, which is device. And effectively, then we're in a position to save that. So now we have both a package monetized and a particular plan about which devices can actually be leveraged to use that Platinum service. Okay, we can now activate that package, and effectively we can then publish that API package again up onto the API portal. So again, if we look at the API packages now, we'll see that we have a new package for the device package. And again, we can see that's been published automatically up into the API portal. We then show the details. So as you can see, what we can now do is we can apply request an API token. So in this case, we need to define an application name and request a token. So effectively allowing us to be able to access that application token via this particular environment. So we'll create a new one. And then what we can then, if we go back to this particular gateway and we actually have a look at the applications, we can now see our new services company application. And effectively, if we then drill down into the details of that, we'll see the information associated with the access tokens that are now available that can be leveraged, and equally the information associated with that application for use of the service. So if we go back to the gallery for a moment and we drill down into the detail of our particular device API, so what we can now see is the details of the API. And as you scroll down into more details in terms of the API resources, you can see all the information that we've completed. Equally, if we look at the try the API, what we can then do is effectively you can see the URL. And again, I mentioned earlier that it was on 5556 and the endpoint is 5555. Notice that the API gateway key is automatically been put in for us. And equally, we can see various information with regards to the actual API itself. If we scroll down, what we might also want to do is add some security onto this. In this case, we'll add on basic authentication, which is a username and password. We can put a default one in there. However, what will happen is probably it will ask us for that again when we execute this. So if we now test this service, it's going to ask again for the basic authentication. And we can complete that. And then what will happen is you'll see that the service is executed successfully. All of the information has been returned in terms of that particular waste bin from my smart city. So that was effectively allowed us to execute the service between the virtualized service endpoint and the actual on-premise endpoint. So let's have a quick look at analytics. There will only be analytics. This is the analytics for this particular service device. There'll only be one. We've only just created it. So there's not a lot of information associated with this particular device. But as you can see, there's all the logging information that we asked it to log in terms of the request and the response have all been logged with inside of the API gateway. We can see various information about how long they've taken to run, etc., etc. If we have a look at the overall analytics side of the platform itself, this will show me all of the APIs that we've currently got exposed in the gateway. And again, we have a lot of information in here in terms of the overall events, the application activities. We can select via period. We can actually pull information with regards to trends, the applications and the packages that we currently have on there. And effectively, we're able to see the overall execution time of each of the APIs that are made available inside of the platform. That concludes the video for use case 2, focused on the digital business transformation. What you've seen here today is how we can take the world of IoT and merge it with the world of process. We have the ability to take readings from the smart city to be able to automatically trigger events in a citizen developer agile process environment. We were able to expose the data as APIs. We were able to integrate and provide the interoperability between the world of IoT and the world of process. We've shown how citizen developers can develop very easy and quick processes. We've shown how we've built business process automation around the industrial waste, as well as provide that human task management capability within inside of the Agile Apps platform. Not to mention the analytics required in order to monitor the integration between the two. Effectively, what this use case was designed around is to allow the launch of net new digital products and services for the government's smart city, allowing waste companies and citizens to gain access to information that will actually provide an opportunity for the government to pursue new business models with their partners, to be able to expose new capabilities to their citizens and improve the overall customer citizen satisfaction.